All right, so welcome to the first project here, and what I'm going to show you in this video is how to accentuate and colorize black and white line art in Adobe Photoshop. So in order to do that, you're going to be using a lot of layers. So what I would recommend is you take your layers panel, which is always pushed way down at the bottom here, put your cursor on the word layers and tear that out. I'm going to separate it right up there. And I'll pull the bottom edge down like that because I'm going to need room for layers. Okay, that's the first step. The second thing I do, you cannot successfully colorize line art if you are on a background layer. You don't want to paint on your layer with your line art because 10 minutes from now you might decide to change your mind and you've kind of screwed things up. So what I'm going to do is double click the word background. That brings up my layer options here where I can name it. And I'm going to name my layers with what is on that layer. So I'll call that line art. And I'll click OK. Okay, what you've just done is converted a non-editable background layer into a workable layer right here. Now imagine this is black ink printed on a white sheet of paper. Okay, the only way I'm going to be able to colorize this is putting my colors on separate layers. So let's say I want to paint a little area with pink. I would come down to the bottom of my layers panel, click the little plus to add or create a new layer. I go right on the name and double click, and I'll call that pink ears. And I'll hit return. So right over here is my foreground color. I can click that, scroll through my visual spectrum here, come up to my reddish pinks. Then I have to jump in the box and pick what shade of pink, from the brightest in the upper left, which is white, to the upper right, which is the purest shade of that color. And as I go down, it gets darker and darker. So I'm going to come over here to a light shade of pink, and I'll click OK. And just to show you what's going to happen, we're going to delete this layer in a second. I go over to my brushes, or my brush. And when I come out, that is a really, really small brush. That would take forever to paint inside these ears. So the way you resize your brushes, and you have to be inside your file. You can't be out here. You have to be inside your file. On a Mac keyboard, in the bottom left corner, you hold down your Control key and your Option key at the same time. Control and Option. Then with your mouse, if you press down and drag to the right, you will make your brush bigger. Drag to the left, you make your brush smaller. Drag down, you make your brush harder. Drag up, you make your brush softer. Okay, so by holding Control key and Option key, left and right is the size, down is a hard brush, up is a soft brush. So since this is line art, I want a hard brush. So I'm holding Control key and Option key, and I'll drag all the way down. Now I can let go, but that brush is way too big for those ears. So I'll hold Control and Option and drag to the left a little bit more. And let me just show you right here. I'm not going to try to paint the ears yet because that's too big. But if I have a layer that floats above my line art, obviously I don't want to do this. Okay, the problem with Photoshop is if you want to color line art, the line art should always stay at the top. You don't want to cover your line art. So if I pull the pink ears layer right below the line art indicated by this blue line, that's like tucking color under a white sheet of paper. You can't see anything. So obviously that's not going to work. So I'm going to throw away this pink ears layer and come back to that line art. We somehow have to affect the line art layer so we can see through the white sheet of paper. Okay, and it's a simple trick. Again, this is black ink printed on a white sheet of paper. You can't tuck color under a white sheet of paper. So on every layer in Photoshop, right above, you have a bar that says normal. These are your Photoshop blending modes. How is my line art going to interact or blend in with the colors that I want to use on it? I'm going to set that bar from normal down to multiply. And what multiply does is treats the white areas as if they're transparent. So you can almost look at this as black ink printed on a white sheet of glass. The black ink on a blank sheet of glass, because if it was white glass, that would be stupid. So this is black ink on a sheet of glass. Okay? Here's what I mean. I create a brand new layer. I'm going to take my brush and just paint on that layer like I did before. But now when I pull it under the line art, I can see my color under the drawing. Okay, so I'll throw that layer away again. What I don't want to do is accidentally paint on this line art, because that's the only thing that should be on the layer is line art. Okay, so once I have set it to multiply to blend in with my colors, I'm going to click the white lock. Now this layer is protected. I can't do anything with it, and that's good. Okay, remember, your line art always stays at the top. So when I come down and click this little plus to add a new color, I tuck my colors under my line art. Okay, so I'm going to double click this name again, call that pink ears, and I hit return. I have my shade of pink, but now the problem is I don't want to take a brush, hold Control and Option and make it really small, and like a kid with a coloring book, I have to color inside the lines and see how it goes outside the lines. I got to be really precise. It's going to be too much work. Okay, so I'm going to go to Edit, undo that brush. And what I'm going to do is use the magic wand to help me to select things. So on my top layer, my line art, on my toolbox, the second tool down on the right, if I press and hold, I have a magic wand tool. Okay, your magic wand is for selecting flat areas of color. So if I am on the line art layer, I have my magic wand and I click right inside this ear. You can see little marching ants going around that little space. But I have another ear over here. So notice when I click over here, now that one gets turned off. Click over here, now that one gets turned off. So the way the magic wand works is if you click on a shape and you have selected that, you hold your shift key and you will see a plus next to your magic wand cursor. I hold shift and click to add another selection. So now I have both pink areas, or where I want to paint pink, selected. Okay, the magic wand is good. It is not perfect. So I want to show you how to correct that when you're using the magic wand with line art. I'm going to take my zoom tool and right up here on this corner, I'm going to click and drag to the right and zoom in real close like that. Okay, if I need to move it around, I hold my space bar for my hand tool and I can just kind of move my image around on the screen with my space bar being held down. And notice how my selection goes right up to the edge of these gray pixels. Okay, these little gray pixels are called anti-alias pixels. What they do is they allow your eye to smoothly blend between white, a transition of gray, and then black. Otherwise, you would get a bitmapped image and it would look like an old 80s Nintendo Brothers or Nintendo Mario Brothers game. It would look really choppy like you're seeing here. But this gray tricks your eye into thinking you're looking at a curve on your screen when you're really not. Okay, the magic wand goes right up to these gray pixels. So the problem is, if I was to fill this area pink, I would have a pink ear, a light gray outline, and then my black. All my colors would be surrounded by this ugly gray edge. Okay, so what I always tell my students is when you are done using your magic wand, I've selected the areas I want. I go to Select menu, modify my selection, and expand my selection by 1 pixel. 1 pixel right there. When I click OK, it has jumped past these gray pixels into the black. I'm going to get better saturated edges. Okay, I can take my zoom tool, click and drag to the left, hold my space bar if I need to, and move it around. Click and drag to the left a little more. And now I want to fill these 2 areas with pink. So anytime you want a new color, put it on a new layer. The only thing that goes up here is line art, and you can't paint there anyway because it's locked. So you need a brand new layer for each color. The simplest way to fill these 2 areas with this foreground color is to go to my keyboard, and I'm going to hold down the Option key, and I'm going to hit the big Delete key. Option and Delete. What that does is sets a keyboard shortcut for fill with foreground color. So now I've filled this area, but it looks really boring. It's just flat and pink. There's no dimension to it or anything like that. So I'm going to click on this foreground color, pick a darker shade of pink down in here, and I'll click OK. Then I'm going to go to my brush. And instead of a small brush, I'm going to hold Control and Option key, bottom left corner of my keyboard, go to the right, and I'll drag up. Okay, I go to the right and I drag straight up. I want a really soft, like spray paint kind of brush. I'll make it a decent size right here. Then coming down below the pink area, so the brush just skims that bottom edge, I can paint a little bit of a shadow right in there. Okay, and if that color is not dark enough, let's click here. We'll go even darker. Paint a little shadow right in there. So I give the ears a little bit of depth. If I hold Control and Option and make my brush really small, I can take the tip of the brush and just skim the outer edges of the ear right there. And we'll skim that edge right there. Skim that edge right up there, and just skim the outer edge of the ear like that. So I've given the ears a little more depth with paint. When I'm done, okay, these selections are going to stay on my screen. I'm trapped in these areas. So whenever you are done, you hit Command D to deselect. Now I have freed up the ears. They are separated from my line art because they're on a separate layer. You can turn the eyeball on and off. Okay? That's the first method, is just adding blank colors. Now I want to select and show you how to use special effects on your layer. So I'm going to come back up to the line art. I have to go back up to line art in order to use my magic wand. The magic wand is only going to work for this project on your top layer. So I'm going to pick, let's say, this space right here. Hold my Shift key and click on this space right here. And again, when I am done with the magic wand, I go to Select menu, Modify, Expand, and I don't have to change the number again. I just click OK. And now I want to make these areas blue. So I'm going to come down below the line art, make a brand new layer by clicking on the plus, and I'm going to call that, by double clicking the name, Blue Ears Area. You can call your layers whatever you want, but Blue Ears Area. And instead of going to my foreground color over here, I'm just going to pick a shade of blue right up here on my color panel. So go kind of a bluish teal right in here, pick a light blue like that. That looks good. And I want to add color in these two spaces. So I'm on the blue layer, Blue Ears Area. Again, Option key on my keyboard and the big Delete key can fill that with flat color. But again, flat color doesn't look so good. So I'm going to take my zoom tool and zoom in on this side. And then I'm going to use a filter. So I can go to Filter menu, and let's go down to Noise, and I'm going to add noise to that area. Okay, so I have an amount setting. I could go really low, so very light noise right in there. I can make it very grainy. I can use uniform, which is a softer look, Gaussian, which is a rougher look. I also have a monochromatic button, so if that is turned off, you get all the colors of the rainbow. And if I drag this over, you can see that. Okay, that's just way too colorful. So I'm going to click monochromatic, only shades of blue. And I'll drag this down a little bit more so it's not so rough. But now I can accentuate areas of color with filters. And I'll click OK on that. Take my zoom tool, we'll drag back out to the left, hold my space bar to move it. And now that looks decidedly different than this smoother area up above. So I like that look. Again, to deselect, it is Command D to deselect. I want to select this part of the ear. So again, I come up to my line art because that's the layer where I use my magic wand. I'm going to click on this side, hold my Shift key and click on this side. And again, when I am done with the magic wand, I go to Select menu, modify my selection by expanding it, because the magic wand's good, it's not perfect. I have to expand it past those little gray pixels. And now I want to do this area, let's say gold. So again, I come down, doesn't matter which layer I'm on, just come down below my line art. I click on the plus at the bottom, add another brand new layer for another brand new color. I'm going to double click the name of that and call that gold ears. Okay, right up here on my color panel, I'll scroll down to shades of gold here. I'll click and drag up into that upper right corner, which gives me more of that pure gold. You can see it right over here. And again, I'm going to fill that area with flat color, Option key and the big Delete key. But that, again, as the other two, looks kind of boring, just being flat color. So on any layer, you can always go to the far right and double click. That's going to bring up your layer styles, your special effects. Okay, you have a list of special effects here. And what I would always recommend is do not click these little check boxes. Okay, whenever you want a special effect, click on the word. So I'm going to click the words bevel and emboss. When I click those, it will automatically check the box and it activates all the settings. So instead of the style being embossed, I'm going to go with an inner bevel right here. I can set the technique from a smooth edge to a hard edge. I can set the depth up, which now you can really see it carved out right here. Set the depth down, you get a lighter look. I'll set it up a little higher. You have a size right here. If I drag it all the way more to the right, I get a cut right down the middle. Drag it back to the left a little bit. And you can see how the top plateau is kind of raised up right there. I kind of like the look of that. I can move this out of the way. You can see it over here as well. So I've got a little more dimension to these areas. And you can combine these effects. So maybe I come down, not only a bevel and emboss, but I want to come down and add a pattern overlay. So I click on the words pattern overlay. I don't like that. So I can click here and let's say I want a grass pattern. I can open up the folder here, click on this little light grass pattern right there. Or that looks kind of stupid because you got big leaves in there. So let's try this one. Okay, I like that. Click down below so I get rid of that list, but now I can't really see the gold. Okay, so just like your layers have blending modes, your patterns have blending modes. So I can see what that would look like in multiply. I can see what that would look like as color burn. I can see what that would look like as overlay. And I can try these different blending modes. So I'm going to go with maybe color burn. Okay, but the colors in this are now mixing with the golds and making this reddish orange, which I don't really like. Looks more like fire. So I can lower the opacity down and I get just a hint of that texture. I like that. It's subtle and it looks good. So I click OK. Command D whenever I'm done to deselect. So now I've done flat colors, done flat color with a filter. I've done a flat color and double click to the right to add effects. Those are 3 different ways you can go about accentuating line art. And now I'm going to show you how to bring in photography into specific areas. So again, I come up to my line art layer, take my magic wand, because it'll only work on this top layer, and I'm going to click this area right here. And I notice there's not a line here, so this goes all the way up into there, which means when I come over here, I have to hold Shift key and click, and I'll shift click this part. So I have this long part here and this long part here, and that's good. Once I am done with my magic wand, select menu, modify, and expand my selections always by 1 pixel. So now I've got an area selected, and now I need to go get a texture. So I'm going to come down to Safari, and I'll click that one. In Safari, I'm going to highlight here and go to google.com. Right up here, I'm going to click on images, and just to show you a lot of texture, I'm going to type in grass texture, like that. Okay, the whole idea with bringing textures into Photoshop or images is you want large images. So the way Photoshop works is you bring in large photos and you shrink them down to tighten up your details, and they look better and better and better. You don't want to start with a small image and blow it up, because it gets worse and worse and worse. So to compensate for that, I'm going to go right here to Tools. I'm going to come over to the left, and the size of the images I want are only large images. So I can guarantee this is going to completely fill up the space. And I'll just start on this one. It's over 1,000 pixels. That's going to be good. So I'll click on that. Okay, right over here, I get a preview. This is not the large image. So what you do on your keyboard is in the lower left corner, you hold down your Control key and you click once on the photo. Okay, right down here, I can say open the image in a new tab. When I click that, it opens up right above your photo, right up here. So I'm going to click on that. Notice how small this image is. Click. Now it's big. And when I click again, now it's really big. So I like that. I'm going to click and drag this straight down. And you got to pay attention to your black arrow. You just pull that right down onto the PS and then let go of your mouse. And you'll drag it right up into Photoshop. Only Safari will do that. So that's why I use it. If you're using Google Chrome or whatever, you have to drag your image to the desktop, then drag it back into Photoshop. It just takes an extra step. So I use Safari. Okay, what I'm going to do here is just hit Command A for select all of my image. A for all. Command A. Then I go to Edit and I copy all of that image. Okay, I don't need this open anymore. I've copied it, so I can click this little X and close it. Now I've selected where I want my photo to go. So you cannot go to edit and just choose paste, because that's what you're going to get. So I'll go to edit and undo that. If you have the area selected, you go to edit, paste special, paste into the selected area. And now I can see my grass. Okay, but I can barely see those blades. The grass image was really big. So on my zoom tool, I'm going to click and drag to the left, zoom way out. Okay, here's my photo on my layers panel. And basically what that did is when you choose edit, paste special, and paste into, your selection becomes this little black and white window. So if I held my option key and click on this little black and white window, my selections have now turned into this white opening. Option click here again, option click, I come back to my photo. On the left is the photograph of the grass. And if I want to blow up or shrink that, I hit Command T to transform. Okay, you can only transform when you can see the corners. That's why I zoomed out. Command and minus will zoom out. Command and plus will zoom in. If I'm too close, I can't see the corners. So Command and minus will zoom out. I can go inside and move the photo around and notice how it's trapped in that space. I can drag a corner and shrink my photo and then go in and just move it back into that window right there. So I see a lot more of those grass blades in there. And I kind of like that look. Command and plus can zoom back in so I can see that better. Space bar gives me my hand tool and I can pull that down into view, and that texture looks pretty good. Okay, Command and minus. Whenever you are done transforming, you have to get rid of this box. You have to accept what you transformed, and you can do that by hitting return. Okay, the only other rule to keep in mind is nothing goes above your line art, because once artwork goes above, it starts to cover your line art. So I'm just going to pull this photo under the line art. And you can see that right here. I'll just zoom in so you can see that. Okay, when it's on top, it covers the edges of my line art. You can just see half of this line art. When it's under the line art, I get the bolder look of those black lines. So you want to keep everything under the line art layer. Line art is set to multiply. Every other layer is normal. So there are 4 ways to colorize line art in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, what I would also suggest is as you get started, typically layer by layer, every time you fill a layer, save your progress. Okay, this one hasn't been saved because it doesn't have my name on it. So you would go to File, Save As, and you would save it as your file that you're working on, either at home or here in class or whatever you want to do. But there are 4 different ways to colorize and accentuate. So inevitably, I want you to colorize the whole thing using flat colors if you want, using filters, using layer effects by double clicking to the right of the layer, or by using photos that you paste into a selection. So if you want to try any of those, go back through this video, find the technique that I use so you can kind of rehash that and take notes if you want to. And you can see some of the possibilities that are available when I colorize this whole thing. All right, I wish you good luck. I hope to see what you come up with pretty soon. Bye.